family, welcome to another one of our videos. We really appreciate you watching our videos, and if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe, share, like our videos, ask friends to subscribe. Subscription, especially once we reach 1,000 subscribers, is how we support the ministry once we're able to be monetized. So please do subscribe. Ask your friend, your friend's friends, and your grandmother's aunties to subscribe to the channel. But most importantly, to be able to watch our videos. Our content is timeless. So if you haven't watched any of our past videos, please do go through and watch and grow with us. So today, I have another lady who went into ministry in her 20s. And we just want to hear from her experience. As I had said in the previous video with Winnie, uh, being a lady going into ministry, especially before you get married or in your 20s, there are many challenges, unique challenges that one faces. Yet there's so much joy. There's the actual calling that God has put in your life and the fulfillment that you get from doing His work. And it's just good to hear from these ladies and know how we can be of encouragement and of help. Because if it's God who's put this calling in their lives, why are we as a church, because we are talking to believers, why are we putting obstacles in their ways rather than encouraging them and building them up? So today with me I have
Mercy.
tell us a bit about yourself.
My name is Mercy
Mhm.
Obala.
Mhm.
I just turned 30 years old. Yay! I am in ministry, as Jane has said. I work with a ministry called New Roots Foundation, where we disciple orphans, and we also sponsor them through university. So there's also the financial aspect of it, but it is a Christian program, it's ministry. So that's what I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when Mercy was 5 years old, what did she want to be? When I grow up, I want
She
to
did
be
not know when she was 5.
Yeah.
Because I always changed it, you know. Anytime they would ask if there were other kids there, if I would hear another kid saying, I want to be a pilot, that's what I'd say. It's a new thing that I've learned, because at the time I didn't really understand careers and career paths. But what I can remember is when I was about 12 years old, I was in standard 8. That is when it dawned on me that there is someone who usually signs money, the note, and that is the governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. So I was like, wow, I have found my dream job. And also I was very good at mathematics. That's something that I was really good at. So from that day, that is what I always aimed to be. And I remember in my math book, I wrote 3 things. I wrote I want to be an accountant, financial advisor, and banker. And God has a sense of humor, because I have been all those 3 things, but I'm no longer that. So yes.
Okay. Well, let's start with how you got born again.
Yeah.
Tell us, how did you get born again?
So I grew up in a Christian family. My mom was a believer, and I got born again when I was very young. I thought I was born again because I grew up learning memory verses and attending church. But one Sunday, when I was about 8 years old, our pastor was preaching and was talking about salvation, and I understood what salvation was, and I got born again that day. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yes.
So, you got born again when you were 8, you went through high school, I'm
Yeah.
guessing through the CU,
Yeah. Yes.
normal motions.
Yeah. I was a dancer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I was in a dance crew.
I know after high school you joined Youth for
Yes,
Christ.
I did.
That's where I met you.
Yes.
And you went into, we did missions together
Yeah.
and all of that.
Yeah.
And then also you went to study.
Yeah, I did. So I went to study finance, Bachelor of Commerce Finance, because that is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the banking world, finance, accounting. So that's what I went to study. And as you have said, at the time when I was in uni, I was also volunteering with Youth for Christ, where we would go for missions, we would go to high school, teach them about various different things about the Word of God. So that's what I was doing at the same time when I was in uni, throughout my uni life,
So when did you, what we like to call, get the call?
Yeah.
When did you know you want to go into full-time ministry, as we
Yeah.
call it?
I think that's an interesting question. So all throughout university, I always enjoyed going out for missions, meeting young people, being with young people, but it was not, I still had, the plan to follow up on what I wanted to study and practice finance.
Account,
yes. So I remember it was my last semester of uni where you have your last semester, then there's a period before graduation. And at that time, we were looking for internships. And the whole class, one of the banks in Kenya put out a collaboration with our university. So we all applied. And it was a very anxious time because you don't know where you are going from here. So we all applied. I was very excited for that. And out of the whole class, only 3 of us were called for the interview. And out of the 3 of us, only 2 of us attended the interview. And I remember we went together. We went to Nairobi. I had never been to Nairobi. I went to Nairobi. I saw KICC, the big building with the skirt. It was so new to me. But it was a very exciting journey because at the time I still wanted to practice finance. Went for the interview, 2 of us, and I was the one who was called. So you can imagine how exciting that was. Everybody was celebrating. I remember my father, he loves education very much. He was very proud of me. And I was also very proud of myself. And then I started the internship. So this is the period between finishing your coursework and graduating. So I went, and by the second week, I knew this is not what I want to do in my life. But I didn't know, because I had never been around lots of people who are doing full-time ministry, I didn't know how that would look like for me. So that's when God started tugging at my heart. I think God allowed me to experience that which I really wanted, and I saw that it was actually not fulfilling. And I remember when I was at the bank, my friends from Youth for Christ used to come and visit me. And I would be so happy. I would always look forward to Tuesday Bible studies. I would get out of work really quickly. So it was a good experience, but the Lord used that to show me that this is not actually what I made you for. This is not it for you. So that is the point where I knew this is not what I want to do with my life.
It was not fulfilling.
It was not fulfilling, yes.
And that whole idea of what the Lord made you for, because sometimes we fight with God about the direction of our lives in many ways, not just career, but He made us for something, and that something will be fulfilling.
That's true.
So it's not a bad thing that He's calling us to. So from there to actually now going into full-time ministry.
I think it was a very long journey, and as you have mentioned, I am one of the people who really fought with God. I made business plans. I have had businesses that rose and fell again. So the plan that I had, now I knew this is not what I'm going to do. So I thought in my small head, it would be nice if I have a business to support myself and then do ministry. But
after all, it's what God
but I did not seek the Lord about that, and it was still me trying to sustain myself and make plans for myself. Yet it is the Lord who called me, and I was struggling to believe that He was going to provide for me, because that was one of the biggest things. I was looking at the future that I had planned and the future that was so uncertain that required me to trust God, but I just really struggled with that. So it took a couple of years. So from the internship, I was a banker, and then I joined a financial advisory firm. I was a financial advisor. And then I worked as an accountant as well for an NGO. So I was an accountant. But eventually, the peace that the Lord gives you when you are in His will is not usually present if you know what you're supposed to do, but you are not doing it. So eventually, it caught up with me because I didn't have peace. And I knew in my heart of hearts that the Lord wants me in ministry. The Lord wants me to work with young people. And so I remember vividly the first interview that I went to that was a full-time ministry job. At the time I was working actually as an accountant at a hospital, which I had even forgotten. And my friend told me there was an opening at a place where I used to volunteer. So even when I was working in corporate, I would still volunteer. I would still look for opportunities to volunteer, to be in ministry. But obviously the time, it was such a struggle because I remember one time there was a lady that I was working with and she would reach out to me, but I was not available, and it really burdened my heart. So when that interview was announced, I prayed because at that point I had learned that there is nothing for me outside the will of God. So I didn't want to just go just because it's ministry. And yeah, I felt the peace. I got the go ahead to apply for the job. I got called for the interview. And it was so interesting because the interview day was the same day that I had gone to Nairobi to attend my brother's graduation. And I remember praying and telling God, this is between me and you. I am going back. I'm going to miss this graduation. But I want you to see that I trust you now. I trust you with my life. Whether I get this job or not, I have given up, my own will. So I traveled back, came for the interview, and I remember it was going so well, tell me about yourself. I was giving a history of, what I studied, and then they asked me one question. Why do you want to be in ministry? And I started crying. I was crying before the interview panel. Because they just touched a spot where I knew, I just knew. And I started explaining to them how it is in my heart. It has been so difficult to just give in to what the Lord wants. But and I went home that day thinking they are never going to give me this job. I wasted their time. I was crying the whole time. But they called me and they told me that I got the job. So that's the first time, the first place that I was working with as a full-time minister. Yeah.
And so what is your calling? Because even as the Lord calls you into ministry, it's usually a specific area. So what is your calling?
So for me, I have always felt called to work with young people, work with young people who are disadvantaged in one way or another, to teach them the Lord's word, to guide them, and to help them know the Lord. So that may look different, even in the places where I have worked, but that is what that is where my heart is, and that is what the Lord has called me to do. Yeah.
You've touched a bit about the internal challenges that you had in your journey.
Yes.
We'll come back to that. But now, what are the external challenges that you faced on this journey?
Yeah.
You know what I'm imagining? Here you are, a degree in finance, already on a very good track. People will be like, "Hey, Mercy, is that the wisdom of the Lord?"
Yeah.
But what are the challenges that you face?
So you've actually reminded me of a meeting that I had with one of my friends, and she was telling me, you are very, when I was telling them about now me going into full-time ministry, and I had such conversations with so many people, and she was telling me, you are wasting your talent. Stop wasting your talent. You can serve God in other ways, but this is what you are good at. And for a moment, I believed, because I was really good at what I did, and even getting that internship was actually like a prestigious thing.
Yeah.
And that was one of the big challenges, just around me, people who did not fully understand, believers and non-believers as well. Why? That was the big question. Why are you living something that you are so good at, you will get paid very well, to go and do what? So that's one of the major things. And also, you know, in the Kenyan culture, a child is expected to be a certain way in terms of you finish uni, you graduate, you get a well-paying job, you buy a car, you buy a house, you know, such things. And in ministry, not to say that the Lord does not provide, but our journeys are very different, because we no longer work for the money. It's something else. And the Lord does bless, you know, which is, I have been blessed beyond what I expected, but not in the way that people usually think blessings come. So that is one of the major challenges that I had. I felt like I had to convince people around me, I am serious, you know, and some people to this day think that I'm just, you know, this is just a joke for me. Yet I am 30 years old now. It was not a phase, you know. So that's one of the things. And I think for anyone who goes into full-time ministry, you have to be okay with that. And that's something that I also worked through, that the approval of God matters more to me than anybody else's approval.
What about internal challenges?
Yes.
What are they?
Of course, I told you guys my aim was to be the governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. As you can see today, I am not. So the uncertainty for me was the greatest challenge. It is learning to trust the Lord for that day. That was so difficult for me. I have been trained as an accountant. Budgets, plans, budget reviews. It's like it is internal, it is within me. So when you tell me to trust the Lord, it's not easy. But He has taught me. He has taught me through His faithfulness and gentleness to trust Him for that day. That His plans for me are good. You see, the verses that we usually read and celebrate in church, but when it's time where the rubber meets the road, is when we now implement them in our lives. So for me, that was the greatest challenge: uncertainty, not knowing, and comparison. I come from a household where everybody has all kinds of degrees, you know, and they climb the corporate ladder, and I'm just like, wow, okay, what am I climbing exactly? But ladder. I usually joke with, you know, my siblings, you guys, I'll be paid in heaven. So such things. But I have really grown. I have really learned a lot, and the Lord has been gracious also in the places where I have failed terribly. And I am still learning to this day.
There's a verse in the Bible that when I was deciding to go into full-time ministry, for me it was a season, because I feel I'm now going into another season. Video for another day. But I remember reading a verse that said that says, "He who gives up father, mother, and houses in this world will gain even more in this and in the world to come." Which means that sometimes the world looks at you like you see, when you're climbing up the corporate ladder, it's going along with things: the car, the house, the husband, and 2.5 children. But God restores those things in His own timing. In this earth and in the world to come. So I think that would be my encouragement to anyone and to you, that it's not a total give up. He is, like I said in Winnie's video, He's a good employer.
He is.
He takes care of us. so that you may not have everyone else is talking about, oh, we have I have this insurance cover, I have this insurance cover. God just gives you good health.
Yeah.
You don't need to go to hospital. That's
Yeah.
his insurance cover. But yeah. So we've talked about the challenges, we've talked about the journey.
Yeah.
But what are the joys?
Yeah.
What are the joys that you
I
have
don't
had?
know if I will be able to explain in words
Yes.
the joys that come when you walk in the will of God, whatever that may be for you. Because most of the things are internal.
Yeah.
Most of them, even if I explain to someone, when they experience it, is when they will understand, as the Bible says, taste and see. You know, you can hear. But I would say the things that the Lord has done in my heart, I don't think that I would have experienced them anywhere else.
Yeah.
The Lord has healed me. You see, when I was going into full-time ministry, I thought I was going to serve the Lord, right? But the Lord it was actually even for my benefit. Now, looking back in retrospect, it was in those moments of obedience that He met me with His grace, with His mercy, with His healing. It was in those moments that I was able to grow and know more who God is. Because even my knowledge of God, when I was stepping into full-time ministry and now, has really grown. And it's not because of me again. It's just an obedient heart. The Lord can do so much with that heart, you know, for other people and even for that person. So I would say I have been blessed immensely, even by the people that the Lord has put around me, my bosses. I have had the most amazing bosses. I just want to shout
Do you
out
want to mention them?
Anne, Victor, you guys, Storm, Sophie. I'm going to cry. You guys are amazing. Helen Budoni. All these are my bosses. As I have worked in ministry, it's very different from corporate. People who care about you, people who pray for you, people who you spend time together. We play games together. It's not what I thought. And the Lord, I didn't know this when I was coming into this. So as I have mentioned, there are many things that we can't even quantify them. We can't, just so many things. And also materially. I just want to tell anyone who is afraid to come into ministry because they are worried that the Lord will not provide for them. I am a living testimony. There's a song that says, Umenifanya ning'are. Guys, the Lord makes you shine. He provides above and beyond, right? Because He's a good God. So I have benefited in so many ways.
And of course, the fulfillment of work, that your work is fulfilling.
Yeah, sure.
You know?
Yeah, that's a big thing.
So I want to throw in something I hadn't prepared you for. But there is now this whole idea of, you see, in most ministries we look for support.
Yes.
And now one of the things that happens is when you go to look for support, you're told, kwa nini hawendi kufanya kazi kama watu wengine?
Yeah.
Are you able to address the whole idea of support
Yeah.
and ministry, and why, as believers in the church, we need to be supporting ministry?
Yeah, I think I'm glad that you are talking to believers.
Yes.
Because we cannot expect non-believers to understand even what ministry is. And one thing that maybe I would like to say is, actually every believer is called. Each
Very
and
true.
every one of us has been given a mandate to go and make disciples. If you believe in Jesus Christ. And some of us have been called to live our vocations as we know them. For example, me. And to do something else which the Lord has sent us to do. And that is what we now refer to as full-time ministry. But even the other believers, they have been called. So even as you are a doctor in your workplace, you are a representative of Christ, whether you work at the county, wherever you work. So first, that is the mindset that Christians need to have, that we are actually, as Corinthians says, we are one body.
Yeah.
You cannot say that even though I'm a believer, I work for my money and we are working together to build God's kingdom. And some of us are working in what we know as full-time ministry, and some of us are not. But there is not one who is more anything than the other, because it is the Lord who gives us assignments for life. It is the Lord who places us where we go. So I think once we understand that as believers, we will not see ministry as someone who's not working, you know. And I even have friends who are believers and family who would pray for me. Mercy does not have a job. I just be like,
Yeah.
but it comes from a place where we don't really understand that the Lord is the one who gives us tasks and assignments to do in our lives. And therefore, there's not anyone that's bigger than the other. So as a body of Christ, we should come together and support one another. So as someone who is in ministry who's required to raise support, they will also contribute something in that community of believers, you know. So it's not just finances that we can contribute to the body of Christ. So I think that is where the problem comes in. If we see, if you think ministry and being maybe in the corporate world, it's different. It's not different, because the Lord is the one who gives the assignment. So every assignment given by the same God requires the same reverence.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say concerning that.
Oh, thank you, Mercy. Is there anything that you would like to, as we wind up, to share with a lady who's walking this journey currently?
I think the first thing that I would say to any lady, anyone who wants to go into what we call full-time ministry, be a part of a local church. That is a fundamental for any believer. You have to be an active member of a local church. You cannot, it doesn't matter what kind of ministry that you do, you cannot be without community. You cannot be without a community of believers. So that's the first thing. You need to be an active member of a Bible-believing church. The second thing is, it is a wise thing to also look for people who have gone before you. I think that's one of the things that really helped me, because I was in a long period of confusion, wondering, why am I a believer and yet I have no peace, you know? Because I was not where the Lord wanted me to be. So seek godly counsel, not just any counsel, and pray. And don't wrestle with God. You do not have the capacity.
It actually sounds counterproductive, wrestling with God.
Don't do that. Take it from me. Nah. So that's what I would say. And be encouraged. Our God is a good God. He's a good Father. He has good plans for you. So step in to it with faith. You can pray all you want, but if you don't step into it with faith, you still remain there. So that's what I would encourage a lady who wants to go into full-time ministry. Yes.
Good. Thank you so much, Mercy, for giving us your time. And if anyone would like to support some of the ministries that you've mentioned, there's New Roots Foundation, and then the one you started at was New Beginnings, Crisis Pregnancy Center, and also Youth for Christ, all based in Uasin Gishu. And sometimes, when we're talking about support, sometimes we are very quick to send money to ministries outside the country. They put the number under the television. So if you're in Uasin Gishu, if you're in Kenya, support your own. So you can look out for these ministries, New Beginnings, New Roots Foundation, and Youth for Christ, and you can send in your support to support the work that those ministries are doing, not even just Mercy specifically. And for us at Ruby's, just subscribe. Just get us to 1,000 subscribers. That's all we are asking. But thank you so much for watching. You can share in your comments any words of encouragement, any questions that you may have concerning this subject, and we can do a consequent video if need be. Recently, also, we had put out a form asking you on the topics that you'd want us to share. So please look out for those. They will be coming up, especially starting the month of June. We'll be addressing the questions that you asked Rubies to address specifically. Thank you for watching. God bless you and walk with you through your life. Again, thank you, Elder Palm, for having us here. And thank you, Tribeless Photography. We are grateful. God bless you.